Thank you, thank you. How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing at 3? I was ready for more talks. Anyway, hi everyone, I'm Chi. I'm from Nethermind. I'm a developer and developer evangelist, and today I'm going to talk about warping Solidity to Cairo manually. Quick show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Solidity or Cairo1? As I see a couple of hands. Or, okay, what about Solidity only? Not many hands. But how many of you think that Cairo1 it's hard to pick up? Like a couple of hands as well. Okay, cool. Okay, before I start, a quick introduction of the company. I'm from Nethermind, and what we do is that we are a blockchain research and software engineering company, and how we involve in the StarkNet ecosystem. So we build toolings and infrastructure on StarkNet. So these are the 4 things that we primarily build on. WAP. WAP, it's a Solidity to Cairo transpiler, which I will talk a bit more later. Horus is a formal verification tool for Cairo smart contracts. Juno, it's a client on StarkNet written in Golang. Just like how you have Geth in Ethereum, you have Juno in StarkNet in Golang. And Voyager, finally, is a team that I'm involved in. It's a block explorer. What is block explorer? So think of Etherscan. Like Etherscan is like the window to Ethereum, the Ethereum chain. We have Voyager, which is the window to the StarkNet ecosystem. So that's block explorer. Right. So how do you reach us? We are on Discord. And this little corner on the bottom right, StarkNet corner, and this is our QR code. So I'll pause it for 5 seconds. I'm pretty sure the event organizers will be sharing this afterwards. But if you, this is our Discord. Feel free to join us and ask questions. We have Juno, Voyager, WAP, Horus channel, and the general StarkNet corner. Ask your questions to us, and we are more than happy to receive them. We are also on Twitter, Nethermind Twitter. So for those who are not following, this is your time. Follow us, and we always have updates on not only StarkNet, but on a lot of things such as the recent Chapella update. Okay, so back to the original topic, warping Solidity to Cairo1 manually. So let me do a quick breakdown of what it really means. So WAP, it's a tool, as I mentioned, like it's a tool. I'm just using the word WAP because it's a tool that we built that converts Solidity code to Cairo1. So the original intention is to onboard people to StarkNet ecosystem. So that means they don't have to rewrite their Solidity contracts from scratch. They just have to use WAP, and it converts your contract to Cairo0 code. So with a little bit of modification, you're able to then have a working Cairo0 code deployed. And a bit of history, in Cairo0, the WAP team managed to transpile Uniswap v3. So for those who have seen the complexity of a Uniswap v3 code, it is not easy to rewrite. It is tedious, not to say it is tedious to rewrite everything in Cairo. But with WAP, they managed to do it with some changes. The changes are documented on a Medium article. So so this is a tool that quickly onboards Solidity devs to the StarkNet ecosystem. So what is Solidity? For those who are asking, it's one of the most famous smart contract language that's on EVM chain. People deploy Solidity code on Ethereum, on Polygon chain, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there you go. And Cairo1, if you are here for a little talk, Cairo1, it's a general provable language that's efficient in producing Stark proofs, and it is also used by StarkNet as their smart contract language. So I chose like some examples that that's relatable to everyone. ERC20 token. So we are going to see how do we rewrite Solidity ERC20 token to Cairo1. So ERC20 is a standard that's been defined and it's a node. These are the functions that they have, and these 2 are the events that has to be there to be called ERC20. So remember this, and I'll repeat them later. And the example that I used that will rewrite, it's OpenZeppelin's ERC20 library, because OpenZeppelin, I'm pretty sure every one of you uses OpenZeppelin in some way or another, and they are there, and I just have to rewrite every of these to Cairo1. So let's see how we do that. All right, so here comes. We know that a contract in Solidity starts from contract and the contract name and curly braces. It's a small mistake here, but it's only one open curly braces, and then the code body goes into the code. So in Cairo1, it's not that much different You just have to have mod, MOD, stands for module, and the name of the contract. And on top of that, you have like a macro, because it's kind of like Rust, macro, like a hash, and the square bracket contract. So, and that's how you put all your logics and your methods in the body. So far so good. And I hope everyone is okay so far, right? Right, everyone, show of hands, okay? Fantastic, cool. And now, the most important thing that we will need in the contract is storage, right? You need to have global storage so that so that your smart contract is able to store states, so on and so forth. People can read from the storage, you can update the storage, so on and so forth. And in Solidity, you have a couple of types such as mappings, uint256, address, strings, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. So how do we write that into Cairo1? Okay, so in Cairo1, we will need to define the struct storage, and you have to place all of your storage that you want into the body of the struct. I will go through this one by one. Mapping in Solidity will be converted. We have to rewrite it as legacy map. It takes in a generics, so address will be contract address, or similarly, class hash will be class hash. And when you use contract address, you need to import a line, use StarkNet double : contract address. So do import that. Previously in Cairo0, you do not have the convenience of U256 out of the box. You will need to import a library. But Cairo1 abstracts that away from you. U256 is now supported out of the box, so you don't have to do any weird imports and weird handling of addition and stuff like that. So you can directly just put U256, which represents uint256, which is a very commonly used type in Solidity, by the way. And one tricky thing I really want to mention is strings. So over here we have string, name and symbol. In storage, we use felt252. A bit of history of felt. Felt stands for few element, because in the world of Cairo, they chose a few element that is 252 bits because of a more efficient computation of proofs and stuff like that. And everything is finally represented in felt, which is just a bunch of numbers, but it's 252 bits long. So you have to rewrite your string and to hex, and then hex will be stored in a name and symbol. A bit of a caveat is that strings can be infinitely long. If you use felt252, you can only have up to 252 bits, so you have to make your string a bit short. But in a case of name and symbol, you don't need like a page long of for names. So it's okay, it's decent, it's good enough for us at this point. So events. So events are very important, especially if you are a dev, block explorer that wants to know what's happening at the state when it changes. So you emit events. So in Solidity, you declare events by having the event keyword in front of the event name. But in Cairo, instead of having the event keyword, you have the event macro, which is the hash event, just like that. And one thing that is not in Cairo1 is indexed. So index. So you don't have to worry about index. Just write your event name as like a function, and then it's like empty colon. I missed out the empty colon, but it has like two empty curly braces, and there's nothing inside. So that's how you declare events in Cairo1. All right. Storage. Oh, this shouldn't be storage. This should be constructor. My bad. So constructor is also something that is very, very commonly used. It is used to initiate your contract at the moment of deployment. So how do you do that in Solidity? It's simple like that, right? You put a constructor, and then you set whatever you want at the point of deployment. It will be called once during deployment. And similarly, in Cairo1, you also have constructor. It looks very similar to that, except that now you need to put like a macro that is constructor. So that's all. So up to this point, we can see that it's really, really easy to rewrite your Solidity contract to Cairo. Just a bit of like, just remembering some syntax. So at this point, I expect no excuses from all of you to start writing your first Cairo1 contract, especially if you are a Solidity developer. So I'm looking at all of you. So, okay, let's move on. View functions. So what are view functions? View functions are functions that are non-state changing. That means you are just trying to read the state of the contract. In Solidity, you have a keyword called view. So notice between the public returns, we have a view. In Cairo1, it's now again a macro view. So notice that everything in Cairo, it's macro. It's represented having a macro. It's very like Rust in that way. And how we return it is also very like Rust. You just put like a single arrow and then return the type. One thing I want to like highlight, that's also similar to Rust, is that you can have the return keyword, but you can also not have the return keyword if it's the last thing that in your code, and then you can just not a semicolon, and you know that hey, this is how you that they want to return the name. And notice that how I read from the storage, I will need to put the name of storage like this. So before that, it was underscore name in storage. So how I read from storage is like, sorry, where do you go? Oh, underscore storage and the read. Wait, I think I missed a page. Oh yeah. Before that it was underscore write, but now it's read. So yeah, it's so far it's pretty straightforward. Actually, it's going to be straightforward throughout the entire thing, so no excuses again to write Cairo1 contract. External functions. External functions are functions that are state changing. That means you're trying to change something in the state. For example, if I were to transfer ERC20 token from address to an address, the state change will be balance of address A will be deducted, and balance of address B will be incremented, so on and so forth. So the same goes to allowance, approve, and so on and so forth. Again, very straightforward. You just have to need like a macro and says external, and then this function will appear in the write contract section in a block explorer. For example, Voyager. And internal functions in Solidity, you have internal functions and private functions are similar in Cairo1. And in Solidity, you mark it as an internal, but in Cairo1, you just don't include any macros. It's just like that. And yeah, that's all for functions, I guess. Yep, there you go. And one commonly used syntax in the world of smart contracts are message.sender. What it means is that when you send a transaction, it will get the address of the transaction in the world of Ethereum. So in StarkNet, it's called getCallerAddress. You just have to import StarkNet : get that caller address, and you're able to use it just like how you use message.sender. So it's important because sometimes often you want to it's used in like approve allowance and so on and so forth. You need to know who's the sender and so on and so forth. And you also have require and revert in Cairo1. Just like here, you put in a string, require something and put in a string. In Cairo1, you assert and you put in a string. And this string is actually a short string, just like I mentioned before. You cannot be too long, but you don't need a too long error message, right? If it's too long, it's not gas efficient anyway. You can always like point it to some documentation. So it's a single code. And you're able to check that if the sender is from 0 by importing two imports. Use zeroable and contract address zeroable, and then you're able to do that from dot is 0, and then to check that if the from address is 0 or not. And yeah, in the Open Zeppelin ERC20 standard, if you were to approve the maximum amount, which is U×56 max, and whenever people transfer from, your allowance will not be deducted. So this check is required. I mean, it's being done for some UX purposes. And over here, how do you rewrite that in Cairo? So this is a bit tricky. This is the only tricky one actually. So you have to check. Okay, a bit of background. Because U×256 is 256 bits. Felt and everything in Cairo at the end is 252 bits. So you have 4 bits that's missing, and you need 2 bits for additional things. So how do you represent felt 252 as U×256? So the strategy is to use 2 felts to represent 1 U×256. So they have 1 low and 1 high part. And with 2 felts of 128 bits each, you are making up a U×256. So the strategy now is to check the low part and the high part to be the max of a U128 number, just like what I did here. And max, 0xFFFF, how meter long, mark it as a uint128 type, and then I will check that low part and a high part, and I return it as a Boolean if it's true or false. And emit events, I showed how to declare events, and now emit events. In Solidity, you need to put an emit keyword. In Cairo1, you don't have to. You just call it like how you call a function. And finally, if you have done all those steps, this is roughly how the contract will look like. Your contract header, the contract macro, the contract body, the imports, the storage, the events, the constructors, the functions, the external function, the internal or private function. It looks like this. And obviously I did not include the entire code. And once it's done, you will need to then declare and deploy. So declare means that you are instantiating like a class. So in Cairo, I should have included a slide here, but I did not. Sorry. In StarkNet, you need to deploy from a declare class. So right now it's a bit complicated, but it's doable. Right? Just follow the steps. From Cairo1 repo, once you have followed the setup steps, you compile your contract, and then you run this StarkNet declare, the compiled contract, and you declare a class for you. And in the Python Cairo-lang Python module, or whatever you call it, sorry, you are able to then deploy using the declare class hash that you previously have gotten from your declare step. And for reference of how you do it, I would suggest you visit the GitHub link that StarkNet Edu has released. Deploy Cairo1-demo, that's really helpful. It has a lot of setup steps. There are even some ways of troubleshooting if you are on a Mac, just like me. So that's cool, and that is not that difficult. It's a bit tedious for now, but I believe it's going to get better with time. And once you have declared, then you will appear once you have deployed, you will appear something like that on Block Explorer. So I have my deploy contract here. You can see exactly how my hash looks like. And the states received pending, accepted L1, L2. I wouldn't go into that. You can ask in Q&A if you want. It looks like that. It looks like Etherscan because the point of a Block Explorer is for you to have good experience interacting with blockchains. So it's easy for you to get the details that you want from Block Explorer. And this is how the deployed contract looks like. So if it's a Cairo1 contract, Voyager has like a tag that says that this is Cairo1 contract, and there's a tick showing that, hey, it's the latest Cairo1, so you don't have to, it will be safe after regenesis, and so on and so forth. So this is how it looked like. This is the link that I deployed my contract on. And you're then able to interact with the contract page. There's read contract and write contract section. Like remember just now, like we have a couple of view functions. They appear here. The external functions will be on the right contract section. I did not take a screenshot of that. And yeah, that is pretty much the entire life cycle of how I rewrote ERC20 from Solidity to ERC20 Cairo1 and deployed it on StarkNet and used Voyager Block Explorer to interact with the contract. So that's pretty much the entire life cycle. So it's not hard, and so no excuses at all. Okay, I said that 3 times. So. And okay, my thoughts on Cairo1. So throughout the entire experience, what's the difference between Cairo0 and Cairo1? Why the upgrade? Definitely improved development experience. Like over here, you can see that it's pretty easy to convert, but in Cairo0, you have to add in some other additional things like implicit arguments, like and so on and so forth, like some weird revoke reference issue. But all these things has been covered for in Cairo1. So it's still slightly hard to figure out some syntax at the moment, but I heavily rely on the example on the Cairo repo. They have this example folder that has everything over there. So if you do not forget your syntax, just search over there, or you do not know what to import, that is where you refer your stuff. Like for example, those import zeroable thing, like how do I know? I refer everything from that folder. And it requires two different repos to compile and deploy. So that's kind of weird, but that is only going to get better in time. And finally, for those who are who are smart contract devs, you definitely want to verify your Cairo1 code. Right now, in Voyager, it's still work in progress, so expect to see that real soon. And thank you. That's the end of my talk, and I hope you enjoy it. Any questions? It's much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Oh, we have one question. Sorry, he's going to pass you the mic so everyone can hear what you ask. Sorry. Oh, sorry, he first. Yes.
Do you company have full tutorials for that Solidity to Cairo1?
Sorry, can you come again, please?
Do you have the full version, not just the ERC20, the full version of other some ERC?
Okay.
Solidity to Cairo1.
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, WAP, which is the transpiler that I was talking about, is built by Nethermind. It is able to transpile nicely from Solidity to Cairo0. But because Cairo1 is something new, so it's in the pipeline. So in a couple of months, we'll release the transpiler to convert your code from Solidity to Cairo1.
Oh.
We have, but to Cairo1, but probably not so soon in a couple of months.
Okay, yeah, so still under
construction. Yes, but to Cairo0 it works already, so do give it a try.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, there was a.
You have a question
in the front line.
So, can you briefly talk about the difference between Cairo0 and Cairo1, and how soon would we see the transpiler working with Cairo1?
Can I talk about the difference between Cairo0 and Cairo1? So it depends on which aspect you want to talk about. Do you want to talk about the syntax? Do you want to talk about the why Cairo1 is written that way, or why? He is probably the best person to ask. Because, but why? There are a lot of from my observation, the reason why is written in Cairo1. The Rust-like syntax. Rust is well loved by everyone in the community, including me. Look, it's not that hard, right? Like you have seen it before. It's not that hard compared to the Cairo0. It's in Python syntax. I don't really like the indentation, and I'm pretty sure most of you don't like it too. It's kind of like a improvement in syntax 1. It also improves on like the use of like uint256. Before that, you need to import. You need to have a lot of imports for uint256, and you can't just use like plus minus. You have to use libraries to add. So those are like improved defects. And there's this thing called revoke reference. If you have written Cairo0, you know it is not hard to fix, but it's kind of annoying that it happens. So this has been taken care for you already. And there was a mentioning of loops going to happen soon. In Cairo0, there's no loops. So loops are something that it's nice to have. So generally, I would say improve DevX on Cairo1. But when it comes to Sierra and something like that, like the more lower level, I can go on. But if you have any questions, ask me or ask him. He's probably like the best person to answer.
Thank you.
No problem. A couple of questions on the right.
So just wondering in terms of the wrapper function, so how much percentage of the Solidity can be easily wrapped into Cairo 1.0?
That's a fantastic question. So let's talk about Cairo0 right now, because Cairo1, the transpile is not out. So there are definitely caveats. For example, assemblies cannot be warped. So you need to kind of rewrite your assembly to normal Solidity, and then it can be warped. So there are lists of not supported things that you need to manually change on the repo. So I encourage you to go and take a look. So assembly is one. And because everything on StarkNet is an ERC20, including your native token, and in Solidity there's this message.value thing, so it doesn't exist there, so you need to change that. So message.value gets the amount of ether you transfer in that transaction. So there's no such thing as because it's not an ERC20 token, so it doesn't make sense to have message.value in StarkNet. So there's no way for you to do that. So you need to kind of rewrite that part to be ERC20 compatible.
Yeah, okay, and then I guess like in the future, for these very standard function, is it possible just to use some sort of machine learning to sort of transfer wrapper automatically?
Sorry, can you please rephrase?
So basically using, I guess, like a machine learning just to wrap these functions automatically based on these standard functions. Not the one that you mentioned, like Solidity doesn't have, but Cairo1.1.
Yeah. But down the line, there'll definitely be the transpiling will be ready, and then you're able to do those very basic function that you mentioned. Yeah, right now it's already available to Cairo0, and it's going to work about roughly the same into Cairo1.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you have another question there.
Hey, so very curious, like, how do you see the interaction, or I mean, maybe like collaboration between Kakarot? Like, for developers, are there specific scenarios where one should be using Warp or Kakarot or learn Cairo natively? How do you see that kind of develop?
That's a good question. So, Kakarot eventually is going to rewrite the entire stack in Cairo0. Cairo1, I'm bad, sorry, my bad. So they are using Cairo1 to rewrite for the ZK EVM. And what you're asking is basically like a sneaky question, asking me like ZK EVM versus Cairo. So to be honest, it's a lot about tooling and preference, and in the long run, like what do we want? I just had a conversation with a friend on the way here. He was asking me like, hey, if EVM is already ready, like why do you want to write in Cairo1? So the answer to that is that Cairo1 is not only a smart contract language, it's actually a general programming language that allows you to generate proofs. So imagine if you want to write a complex machine learning model, and you are using EVM, probably it's not the best language for you to write machine language stuff. You probably use Cairo because it's easily provable. This is one of the reasons why, I would say. So Kakarot, it's definitely, ZK EVM, which is Kakarot, and other ZK EVMs, which I'm not going to mention. Definitely, people are looking at it. It may or may not, there are still challenges that are facing, but it's a battle between Den and StarkNet, and yeah. So I know it's a very big answer, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we have one more question at the back.
Yeah, I just want to add a very basic question. This probably is already being asked a lot. Like when I use Warp, right? Because it's a transponder, and then so is there any trade-off in terms of performance, like compare with I just write in Cairo natively?
Good question. If you write Cairo super efficiently, definitely writing Cairo from Cairo is definitely more efficient in terms of like if number of like cells that's used. But I think there was a benchmark being done. I don't have it here. WAP is not too bad. It actually depends. Like again, everything is about trade-off, right? If you're trying to move your existing Solidity code to StarkNet, and you have the time, go for it. Just you can rewrite it in time. But if you want to be quick, WAP is a tool that you can use, and then you can. Some people use WAP like, okay, I convert my code from Solidity to Cairo, and then make some tweaks to make it like nicer. But you have already saved a lot of those like copying, pasting, and rewriting in syntax. So improve on that development time.
Yeah, a relevant question to this. Okay, I know that these questions have a lot to do with like non-technical stuff, especially BD and all. But do you foresee the big DeFi protocols? Because I know that the likes of Aave, Chainlink, whatever, right, is also consider deploying on StarkNet. So do you foresee them using Warp, or they are just decided to just write a code base from scratch using Cairo?
I foresee them using both, because if it's like so complex, like Solidity is so complex, they will use Warp first, and they will then change the output to however they like. I foresee them using both. I really do. Unless it's a new project that is on StarkNet alone, then it makes more sense writing Cairo from scratch. But if they're migrating from Solidity to Cairo to StarkNet, then I foresee them using both. Use WAP as like a tool to help them, and then to enhance that, and then they can make more modification on the Cairo end. Yeah.
Thanks for the answers.
Thank you for the question. Is that all the questions I have? Thank you. Thank you so much.